Hello everybody and welcome to the Thursday edition of Video Clips. By the way, if you're in driving distance of Columbus this Saturday, we're having a weight loss boot camp. Good food, good lectures, good exercise. If you're already in our weight loss program, great to come. If you're not doing anything aggressive about weight loss but you'd like to, this is a good chance to get yourself started with some common sense advice. And I promise I won't hurt you at the gym. I promise. It's bad for business if I hurt you at the gym, so it's really safe there. All right. So if you want to do something like that, spend Saturday with us for a few hours and learn some cool new stuff, just send me an email, pampopper@msn.com. I'll have somebody get back with details, all right? Or you can go on our website. We have a fabulous new calendar on our website that lets you sign up for things online and all that sort of thing. Well, wellnessformhealth.com. Okay. You know, I'm a big yoga fan. We have a yoga studio here at Wellness Form Health. If I had my way, I'd live in the yoga studio. Of course, it's a hot yoga studio, which means that I couldn't probably do this in the yoga studio. I'd be pretty damp from the sweating and everything. But I love yoga, and I'm always interested when I find studies showing that yoga has a measurable positive effect on a lot of markers of health. So, according to a new study, regular yoga practice can reduce inflammation in patients with high blood pressure and metabolic syndrome. Metabolic syndrome is a term that's applied to people who have 3 or more of a whole constellation of symptoms, which include things like abdominal obesity, high blood pressure, high plasma glucose levels, high triglyceride, low HDL. This metabolic syndrome gets a lot of attention because people who have it are really high risk of becoming diabetic if they aren't already, developing cardiovascular disease, or having a stroke. Well, the researchers conducting this particular study had already reported that patients who had hypertension and metabolic syndrome and took yoga classes for a year were able to lose weight and lower their blood pressure as a result. And that was really the only thing they were doing differently. They noted that some of the additional benefits included reduction in stress, anxiety, and depression, and improvement in quality of life. And we often joke at the yoga studio about the reason we're not in the asylum is because we come to yoga. And we've also often compared notes and found that our significant others and family members and coworkers and everything encourage us to go to yoga. I've often been suggested, maybe tonight you ought to go to yoga class. So how they did it, the researchers analyzed blood samples from 97 participants in their previous study that I just talked about, who had been randomly assigned to a yoga group. There were 52 patients in that group, or a control group, 45 patients. And they went to 3 classes for a year, 3 yoga classes for a year. They were 1-hour classes. The control group did not do yoga. At the time the study began, there was really no significant difference between the groups. They were pretty much all in the same state of health. They engaged in similar amounts of other types of physical activity. Blood tests showed they had similar levels of inflammatory markers like cytokines and adiponectin. After 1 year, there were big differences. There were significant decreases in inflammatory markers and significant increases in anti-inflammatory markers in the yoga group. In the control group, it was exactly the opposite. The inflammatory markers went up, the anti-inflammatory markers went down. So the yoga group got better, the control group got worse. So I've always promoted yoga, as I said earlier. It's a great way to improve breathing, to build balance and coordination and strength. It doesn't solve anything, or everything I should say. It solves a lot of things. It is part of an overall fitness strategy combined with a healthy diet. It can really accelerate healing of the body and health of the body in major, major ways. So one of the good things is that wherever you live, there's probably yoga nearby. I know in Columbus, there is no end to the yoga studios, and I mean, yoga is being taught in church basements and rec centers, and people do it in their basements, and there's online yoga classes. I mean, there's just no reason not to do it if you want to do it, and so I encourage people to make it part of their fitness regime. And the other thing I'll mention too, there's so many different types of yoga that there's something for everybody. So I've had people say that they don't like our hot yoga classes because they're hard, and then other people will say, well, if I don't come to the hot yoga class, I don't feel like I worked out. So that's great. There's something for everybody. So check it out. If you haven't done yoga before, try including it as part of your regular fitness routine. You'll become an addict like the rest of us are, and you'll be happy you did. Okay. Now, this is something I've been getting a lot of emails about because there are a lot of headlines about it. So Many people are either excited or confused. It depends on your philosophy about diet and health in response to a new study that shows both low-fat and low-carb diets are equally effective for weight loss. You probably saw it's in the New York Times, it was in USA Today, it was in our local newspaper, on the news, etc. Well, I don't like these types of studies because just measuring weight loss without any consideration of the long-term effect of the particular weight loss plan on health, I think is a bad idea. If you just use weight loss as the outcome, I mean, cocaine addiction and living in a refugee camp will work, but I don't know that we would suggest that to anybody. I mean, cocaine addicts are notoriously skinny people, and most people living in a refugee camp don't get enough food, but we're not going to suggest that to people. So again, I prefer to look at the health strategy and hope that it includes weight loss rather than just anything that causes weight loss is good. Well, there was some good news in this study. One was that the genotype patterns had nothing to do with weight loss. So it debunks the idea that genetic profiling can determine the best weight loss diet for people, and also that some people are genetically resistant to weight loss. So it did get that out of the way, and the researchers acknowledged that they were going to go someplace else and do research on other things after this. So I'll tell you a little bit about the study. It included 609 overweight or obese people who were randomized to either a low-fat or a low-carbohydrate diet. The BMI range was 28 to 40, 33 was the average, so these people were generally obese. Participants were provided with behavior modification sessions weekly for the first 8 weeks, and then sessions every 2 to 3 weeks until they reached 6 months, and then for the balance of the 6 months, just once a month. The low-fat dieters were instructed to reduce total fat intake from edible oils, fatty meats, whole-fat dairy, and nuts, while the low-carb dieters were told to reduce carbohydrate foods like cereals, grains, rice, starchy vegetables, and legumes to 20 grams a day for the first 8 weeks. And then after that, all of them were told to add 5 to 15 grams of fat or carbs a week until they reached the lowest point at which they thought they could actually sustain the diet over a long period of time. Now, some of the advice given was actually pretty good. Both groups were told to eat lots of vegetables, to minimize the intake of processed foods that contained added sugars, flour, and trans fat, and to eat nutrient-dense whole foods made at home as often as possible. Nobody's going to disagree with that. There were no instructions to count calories, but the subjects were taught strategies for maintaining their diets and also encouraged to participate in physical activity. And they were told that their diets should be arranged so that they didn't feel hungry and deprived in order to maintain the eating patterns over a long period of time. So all was not bad, all right? Both diets, however, were unhealthy based on what we know about long-term consequences. So for example, the low-fat diets averaged 48% carbohydrate, 29% fat, and 21% protein. The low-carb group was 30% carbohydrate, 45% fat, and 23% protein. Now, neither of those patterns even remotely resembles the diets eaten by healthy people like the Okinawans. Okay, so these were not health-promoting dietary patterns. And as you might imagine, the results were not so great as advertised. I mean, I see this all the time where the headline would lead you to believe that some cataclysmic, earth-shattering, groundbreaking, new body of knowledge has emerged. So let me tell you what this really looks like. The low-fat dieters lost an average of 11.7 pounds over a year. The low-carb dieters lost an average of 13.2 pounds over a year. The difference was not statistically significant. The results ranged from 66 pounds of weight loss to 22 pounds of weight gain. And so if you look at the bottom line, even the quote-unquote successful dieters remained obese at the end of 1 year and made little progress in achieving normal weight. And this is a big problem with a lot of weight loss and health improvement plans. They just don't make enough of a difference over time for people to be motivated to continue doing whatever it is they signed up to do. Now, I'll just give you an example. I took a woman 5 feet 7 inches tall, how tall I am, who would start with an average of BMI of 33, which was the average. So she would have started at a weight of about 211 pounds. If she was assigned to the low-carb diet, her weight loss based on the average would have been 13.2 pounds. I picked the biggest number. And that means that after a year of attending classes and working on weight loss and improving her health, she would still weigh 197.8 pounds. She's still obese. Now let's suppose our hypothetical patient in this case had high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and high fasting glucose levels and was taking drugs to address those things. Such a small drop in weight probably means not a lot of improvement in those areas. So again, a year of taking classes and working at losing weight in the whole 9 yards, you're not off your drugs, you're still obese, your dress size wouldn't really have even changed that much, that remarkably. So this type of effort without any type of real reward is the reason why people quit doing what they're doing. So I don't think low carb or low fat people should be jumping up and down over these results. I don't think either side claims a victory or should be excited about the results. Undeterred, though, the researchers report that they're not going to focus on genes anymore. Now they're going to see if they can determine if the microbiome, epigenetics, or different gene expression patterns might determine the ability to lose weight. I mean, it just seems like there's just, you can't get people to realize that this is much simpler than this. I mean, I'm not talking about the psychological eaters and the people who binge. I'm just talking about the average person who's overweight. If that person were to adopt a whole foods, low fat, plant-based high-fiber diet and exercise, the weight comes off. Now, we have a weight loss program for people who have behavioral issues that go beyond this. But the bottom line is if you're like me, because I used to be overweight, significantly overweight, eat right and exercise has some kind of magical effect on weight loss, go figure, right? So anyway, but I wanted to spend some time on this because people send emails and they go, oh my gosh, did you see this? It says that a low-fat diet isn't better. Well, it wasn't a low-fat diet. Both diets were awful. Didn't really help anybody very much. So, we won't cite this as evidence to support people doing one thing or another as much as just how misconstrued and misreported so much information is. All right, well, that's all for today and all for the week, actually. So pass this on to anybody who you think might enjoy watching it, and I'll be back to you next week with more news.